Hαίrε and welcome. Today we are in John chapter 1, taking a look at verses 9 through, well, just the end of 9, because that's about half a page. This is our rubric, everything we're looking for as we go through this text. Let's go ahead and get started. Hos de egeusato ho archetriklinos tu hudor oinon gegenemenon kai uk eide pothen estin. Ho de diakonoi eideisan hoi eintle kotes tu hudur phone ton numphion ho archetriklinos. And that's as far as we're going to go today. Our very first word is, well, always an enigma, at least in classical Greek. This one in Koine Greek we normally just translate it as or just as. That's a terrible J, sorry. But what we really want to find is a verb, and then we have that right here with egeusato. Sato, specifically the tau omicron portion of that, is our ending, and that's going to tell us that it's a third person singular, and this comes from geomai, I believe, which then makes this a middle deponent with this epsilon right here, and that sigma right there. We know that this is going to be aorist tense. And it is indicative, and it means tasted. So we know we're looking for a singular subject, and that's what we have right here with ho archetriklinos, that word that I can never quite say correctly. Sorry about that. Nominative, singular, masculine. And I don't remember what we were calling him, but the master of the feast, I think. Or we could say wedding party. We've got de left to translate, and that means but or and. So we know that this is connecting to our previous verse 8, which is very good to know. Now we need a direct object for the verb to be acting upon. We find that in to hudor, bracket right there. It's accusative, singular, and neuter. To from ho, right there. A for the feminine, and then to for the nominative and accusative neuter. This means the water. Take a look at oinon. Oinon is the same case, but we know that this noun is a different gender, and of course it's also a noun, so this ends right here, and oinon is its own object. But since we've got another accusative, we have to figure out, well, what is this accusative doing here? This can't take an accusative, so we need to look further ahead in the text, and here we find gegenemenon. On here is, of course, accusative singular. This men tells us that this is a participle. This gamma epsilon here is a reduplication of this gamma epsilon, which tells us what tense this is. So we've got accusative singular. We don't know the gender yet. It could be masculine or neuter, referring either to oinon or hudor. And write both of them down there. Perfect. This is from genomai, so this is going to be deponent. And it's a participle. So we want to try it both ways, starting with the context of our main clause. Just as the master of feast tasted the water, having become wine, or just as the master of feast tasted wine having become the water. Now, since we know the context beforehand, we know that this can't be the direct object. Instead, this has to be the predicate accusative, which then means that this is neuter, referring to hudor, and not masculine. There we go there. Kai, conjunction linking this clause to the next one. Uk eide, I can never distinguish those, at least in sound. Epsilon iota here is our ending, and that's going to be a third person, singular, and this is from oida, so we know with this eta right here that this has become the pluperfect tense, because oida is in its natural form perfect, that we treat it as a present. and this is active and indicative. So oida would mean no, since this is pluperfect that puts it into time beforehand, so we'd have to translate it as new. Now, if we had a present form of oida translated as the present, and we could treat the oida as the perfect tense, then naturally we'd wanted to treat this pluperfect tense as had, but then it would be had seen, because if you recall, oida is related in some way to horao. So in the perfect translation of oida, it means have seen. In the way that they actually use the verb we translated. Not see. Gosh, so many mistakes. No, which means that pluperfect translated as pluperfect would be had seen, but translated in accordance with the way that oida is used, it'd just be knew. He knew, and uk tells us did not. Did not. Pothin estin. Pothin is telling us location, and it means from where. And then esti is, of course, from 80. This is the third person singular, present, active, indicative. And we'd say it is. Moving on to our next clause, hoi de diakonoi, and here is our verb. You can see that this eta sub iota with the delta right there is the same verb as this one, so we know this is pluperfect tense again, and we're going to be treating it as just a perfect tense, the same way that we treated this one. Eisan is our third person plural ending in that tense with this verb. New. And then we want a plural subject, which we find with hoi diakonoi. If you recall, these are our helpers or servants from beforehand, the people to whom Mary was speaking. And de means but, or and. I think in this case it could be but because we don't have a negative here, but we do have a negative right there. Okay. And then we have hoi en tle kotes. Epsilon sigma here should tell us what case this is. It's either going to be nominative plural or accusative plural. Taking a look around, we've got this and our deacons. So they're nominative plural. The only logical thing would be for this to be nominative plural since this is not plural. And also that's neuter. Masculine. And this is a verb that we've seen before. This is anthleo, I think, which means to draw out, specifically referring to water. So this eta here, I believe with the kappa, tells us that this is a perfect tense participle. Hoi, we treat this sort of as a demonstrative. It's still an article, but since we don't have a noun right here, what's going on is we've got the servants, the having drawn out one, or those having drawn out. So I'm going to write both options there. Remember, we always put that in a bracket. To, hudor. It's going to be the same form as this one, so we don't need to parse it again. It's just our direct object, the water. So we've got, and he did not know from where it is, but the helpers knew the having drawn out ones, the having drawn the water out ones. Moving on, phonei, epsilon iota here is going to be a third person singular ending. Phoneo, this circumflex here reminds us that this is a contract verb with epsilon being the contract vowel. So we know this is present tense. It's active and indicative. ahead. Ho architriclinos, failed with that key, is our subject. Omicron sigma there, so we know this is the subject. We don't need to parse it again. Calls the master of feast. Ton numphion is our object. We've got ton from ho, he, to, accusative, singular, and masculine. The groom. And there we go. We've parsed everything and translated it. Let's see what it is in its entire context together. And just as the master of the feast tasted the water having become wine, and he did not know from where it is, but the servants, the having drawn out the water ones, knew. The master of feast calls the groom, and then we reach verse 10. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at it from the context of verse 1. And this is where the video gets really long. And on the third day, wedding happened in Cana of Galilee, with the sea. And the mother of the Jesus was there. But the Jesus also was invited, and the disciples of him, into the wedding. And since wine gave out, the mother of the Jesus says to him, they do not have wine. And the Jesus says to her, what to me and to you? Emphasis on me, woman. The hour of me is not yet come. The mother of him says to the helpers, whatever he says to you all, do. But there were 6 stone water jars standing, to the purification of the Jews, each holding 2 or 3 measures. The Jesus says to them, fill the water jars of water, or with water, with makes more sense. And they filled them to the brim. And he says to them, draw water now and carry to toastmaster, or master of the feast. And they carried. And just as the master of the feast tasted the water, having become wine, and he did not know from where it is, but the helpers do, those having drawn out the water. The master of the feast calls the groom. And that's as far as I've made it today. Thank you very much for joining me. I hope taking a look at this has been helpful for you, just as it has been helpful for me. And if you're wondering what's with the new tabletop, I've moved. You probably saw a video about that, where I was being stupid and running. Don't run, children. It's good for your health. Anyway, thank you for joining me. Have a good day. Hey, not asleep yet? That's okay. I've got tons of other equally sleep-inducing videos for you to watch. Check them out.